Hi, my name is Anais and I am the head of talent acquisition at Pitch, where we built the software that allows you to easily create the type of deck that you're currently looking at. Prior to joining Pitch in June 2021, I had spent about 5 years scaling teams at Amazon, as well as another 3 years at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. Now, during this time, I picked up on a number of time management and productivity tips, but joining a fast-paced, remote-first startup like Pitch, well, that really allowed me to level up my skills there. Today, I'd love to take some time to walk you through some of my most precious and hard-earned learnings, so let's go. What I'd like to cover today are a number of tips around setting the ideal scene for a productive work environment, managing your workday through having your calendar work in your favor and not the other way around, and also adopting communication best practices. So as a first step, I'd recommend to simply start by making sure that your physical workspace is comfortable. Now, I like my desk space to be well lit, clean, and empty, well, because otherwise it just gets me really antsy. And maybe you like it more cozy, with all of your favorite tchotchkes lying around and a coffee cup right by you. So whatever it is, you do you. Just take the time to figure out which space and which setup gets you to be the most productive. And needless to say, the same actually goes for your virtual space. Here, my tip is to make sure that your computer doesn't have a plethora of apps or open tabs running in the background, because otherwise those can be distracting, especially if they're not work related. One key trick that I learned over the years is to use my calendar as much as possible as a prioritization and time management tool. I'm a big fan of mapping out my available time and just arranging it in a way that helps me achieve the best work-life balance possible. So stick with me if you're keen on figuring out how I do this. At Pitch, we are remote first, so our calendars are basically the equivalent of the open door policy in a more traditional office. Our calendar shows when we are available and when we're not. So just to be clear, the expectation is not to be available around the clock. I, like many others at Pitch, make sure to block off the time that I need for personal reasons. And it's also worth allocating yourself some focus blocks, or even sanity blocks, as I call them, between a number of Zoom meetings, for sure. That can make your calendar very heavy, but, well, visually, there's always color coding if you want to be able to see through it. And speaking of focus blocks, I believe that they're always best served with a side of do not disturb mode. It's perfectly okay to be quote unquote offline and not respond to any pings for an hour or more if you need to get some quality work done. Working with Slack at Pitch has been a revelation to me. Our culture is extremely open and transparent, and sometimes this means that there are a lot of communications and pings all over the place. Not all channels are essential to my work though, so I make a point of reducing the Slack noise by allowing notifications only for my most important channels. And did you know that Slack can also be visually noisy and distracting? All those bubbles, those unread messages and mentions, well, they just call for you to respond, don't they? But again, unless urgent, immediate response is not expected of you at Pitch, so just sit back, relax, and perhaps change the colors of your Slack messenger to something more zen. I also highly encourage you to explore all functionalities that Slack has to offer. There's, for example, the status, which helps you manage expectations around response times. There's also the quick reactions, and of course, the automated reminders, which can really do wonders in an asynchronous work environment. Ideally, you'll always want to communicate swiftly and briefly, because even though it's a good touch typing workout, you don't want to spend too much time typing out a response or even having to schedule yet another Zoom meeting because you haven't made your point clear. So here are some simple tricks which I use on a daily basis to enhance my communication with others. Last but not least, it's essential that you choose the right medium for whatever type of work you're doing and that you make sure it matches the impact that you're looking to have. At Pitch, for example, we have a very collaborative work environment where everyone can chime in. So the types of tools that we're using, as seen here, well, they're a direct reflection of this working style, but each tool has its own particular use case. I recommend that you figure out what the tooling landscape in your own company is and what use cases apply to each tool. That way, your collaboration with others is always on point. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time to read through and also watch through these tips. I sure hope that some of them were useful. And if you have some tips of your own that you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to get in touch.